You gotta lay down, Onyx. Lay down. Lay down. We're not playing. Stop looking. Hey, you gotta sit down, okay? You gotta go sit down. Onyx, come here. Sit down. Hey, Onyx, sit down. Sit. Sit down. We're not playing. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. No, he's still out. He's still out.
Benita and Madison and Lindley, Corey, make sure that your cameras are on. The mics can be muted, but the camera has to be on. I promise you won't be on the screen forever, but I'm gonna actually take pictures of the participants as at different points to take attendance. Welcome. You have about 4 minutes before we get started. Nobody likes being on camera. Christina, make sure you turn your camera on. Very good, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and already share my screen because I know you guys are all nervous about being on camera, so I should be the only one that sees you on camera, but I'm gonna need to do that so that I can take pictures and take attendance. I have to apologize, but I have a puppy, and so you'll hear some squeaky sounds. He's playing. Then you'll hear some growling. Uh, One dog is growling at the other, so I apologize. So I see Colton, you don't have your camera on, so make sure your camera is on, please, so I can, when I take attendance by taking a picture of it, it's on. Kiana, I don't see your camera on. I promise you I'll be the only one that sees you. Hannah, make sure your camera is on. Madison Willis, make sure your camera is on. So I will take attendance just by taking pictures of the participants, and I will do that at now, and then I will do that at the very end. So stay on until I dismiss you, and I've told you I've actually taken attendance. I have a total of 36 students, I think, in this class, so I'm not sure that everybody's going to join in. Um, but that's the only way, instead of taking attendance for every single person, it will take us a lot of time. So the purpose of this Zoom meeting is that I can help you navigate your Canvas course and take the most, take advantage and get the most out of it, but also show you some things in my lab in your homework that will help you out, also be successful. So when you first log on to Canvas, this is called the home screen. And this is where you see my office information, my office hours, my virtual office hours that I just had before this hour. If you ever want to make an appointment one-on-one, you could make an appointment through this QR code or this link. But if you want to do it through Zoom, you have to give me heads up and send me an email also so that I can set up Zoom. Especially in those mornings hours, I have face-to-face classes. And if you make the appointment right now and you want to connect in 10 minutes, that may not be enough time. So try to give me a little bit of heads up if you want to make an appointment. And so then we'll have 3 more Zoom meetings, and the next Zoom meeting is to actually go over the graphing calculator. If you are on campus on Wednesday this week, we're doing the same workshop in the Wins Lab at 1:30 to 2:30. So if you'd rather attend that in person, you could get credit instead of the TIA, instead of the next Zoom meeting that we have. Now, I show you where some of that information is, I have noticed that when students come and show me their devices, if it is a calculator, I mean, if it is a phone or a small like a small tablet, a lot of times it doesn't show you these 2 menus that you see right here. Or a lot of times all you see is the to-do list. Don't get into the habit of only seeing the to-do list, because a lot of times you will miss your discussions, and your discussions stay open for sometimes a whole 2 weeks, and participation is time sensitive. So once in a while, access your course through a laptop or a computer so you can see these menus. The one with the green background is called the general or global navigation menu for Canvas. That's where you see your dashboard so you can see all your courses. That's where you see the inbox, and that's how we communicate through email mainly in this course. Now, the one that you see with the white background, that's the navigation panel for the class. And it's not that you don't have them if you are connecting through your phone or a tablet, but they're collapsed really, like with a drop menu on this side or a drop menu right here. But you don't see them when you first log on, but they're there. And the best way to go to your assignments is always go to the modules tab. Because if you get used to always going to Access Pearson or to-do list, you're going to miss a lot of other things that are here in the course. So I'm going to click on the modules. Or sometimes students like to go to the course summary to see the assignments, but again, you miss certain things. So the first module is to kind of guide you through navigating the course, and there's a lot of good information there. Then the third module here is when we have all of our Zoom meetings. So for example, I know you found your way here, but the next meeting, Zoom meeting 2, is actually next week on Monday, but it's gonna be earlier. It's gonna be 7 o'clock like this one, and it's gonna take about an hour. And you always have the option, even when you plan to attend and something happens, you always have the option to listen to the recording and to fill out a questionnaire. That's available. Shortly after the meeting, I need to get I get an email with the recording from Zoom, and I don't have a power over when I get that. So within a day. So for example, let me come back. I mean, doesn't apply to you because you're here, but for example, for Zoom meeting 1, most likely I'll have the recording by tomorrow, and it has to be made up by Wednesday, August the 26th by 11:59 p.m. And it's a very quick turnaround because some of the information we're discussing here is kind of time sensitive. You know, we're already into really the second full week of classes, so you want to get that You want to get all the information that you can. Now, Zoom meeting 3 and 4 those are going to be to review for the midterm and the final, and those will be longer. Expect this one to be maybe like an hour and 30 minutes or so. But the one that we are doing right now and the one on the calculator be an hour. But the ones that are reviews are probably about an hour and 30 minutes. And again, I'm kind of speaking to the choir because you're here, but the way you connect is actually through the Zoom tab, not through any of these links right here. This is just the information. Then every unit, there are actually 4 units in this course, and the 4 units are kind of designed and broken down the same way. I have some videos on the prerequisite concepts. So what happens is if you don't score high enough to go into the functions class, you may be in the integrated review, or maybe you score high enough, but you still feel like you could use some help with the prerequisites for this course. So these are videos I have made on some topics, isolated topics that have to do with the prerequisites for this class. Then I have also some isolated examples from the functions class. For example, finding domain and range, average rate of change, or even writing the equations of lines. So those are isolated problems, and I have some videos that I made over that. So you have a lot of information there. Then I did something similar with the calculator. I have some videos related to the calculator, but also related to Unit 1. So in Unit 1, we're starting to work with the calculator. So some are fairly basic, and you have here those different topics that you can follow along with um, with your calculator in hand. Then the fourth set of videos that I have is what I call the weekly content videos. So those really go section by section. Like if you were in a face-to-face class, this is what I would follow. Of course, the difference would be is that you could raise your hand and ask me a question, but I will follow these videos that I have made here. And I've also posted the handouts. So if you wanted to print them and take notes while you watch those content videos, you can print those and have them ready. You have a lot of resources here for videos for the prerequisite, videos for specific problems using from the functions class, videos using the calculator, and then the content videos for every section. You should at the minimum watch the content video, take notes, and before you do your homework for a particular section, you have already watched this content videos and made some notes. Now, you have already come across the diagnostic quizzes. Think of it as a pretest. Um, in a class this big, but it doesn't always have to be a big class. I have students that are still in high school. They may just have had Algebra 2 last year. I have students that graduated 3 years ago. I have students that it's been 15 years or longer since they've had a math class. So the diagnostic quiz is a pretest. And I'm always a little bit behind doing this, but I will turn them into hundreds. I had a couple of people that added the class late, so I had to reopen some of those diagnostic quizzes so that they can make them up. So about a week after you take your diagnostic quiz, that's when you should expect that I turn the diagnostic quizzes into 100. But the way they work is I actually, if you answer questions correctly, it marks those questions on your homework as if they're done. It actually personalizes your homework. And so sometimes you may see that you took the diagnostic quiz and automatically you have a homework grade. It's because you answer some questions correctly on the diagnostic quiz. So that's one of the few assignments that is timed. The diagnostic quizzes are timed so that you don't spend more than an hour. You take the diagnostic quiz, don't study, don't get nervous, answer truthfully. Then you watch your content video, and then you come to the homework, and that's where you do your studying. Okay? So the only way that I can actually show you the tools in my lab is not necessarily going through the diagnostic quizzes and the homework because I haven't actually taken them in this actual version of your course. So I'm gonna go about it in a different way. In fact, I'm gonna open another page and I'm gonna go back to the class. I'm going to go through Access Pearson. I'm doing what I told you not to do. Don't get used to come to Access Pearson for everything, but that's the only way that I can access your homework or a homework assignment and show you what the tools are. So remember, you take your diagnostic quiz without studying. It's timed to an hour. Then you watch your content video and take some notes, and then you're ready to do your homework. But in your homework, you're also going to be doing some studying. So let me get to the chapter contents and let me get to chapter 1 and say I'm looking at section 1.4. This is not how you go through your homework, but that's the only way that I can do it. And here's a list of all the questions. So I'm going to click on one of these questions. So now this will look familiar because this is the way your homework looks like. This is not exactly your homework, but this is what your homework actually looks like. So right here at the bottom, you have at the minimum 2 tabs all the time. Help me solve it, view an example, and Get More Help has a few more tools. But let me look at Help Me Solve It. Help Me Solve It takes the exact same question you were working on, and it's a little bit interactive. Like it doesn't let you advance unless you answer some of the questions. It gives you some explanations. You can even print it. Like if you struggle with something, you can print one question at a time and you can actually print to help me solve it. But let's say you go through it and you think you catch on. Now, the bad thing about help me solve it is that it changes the question that you had slightly. So you start all over. And sometimes students are frustrated because they have tried this already several times. You come to help me solve it, and then the problem changes slightly. So, but that's the help me solve it. Now, view an example is not interactive, but it looks a lot like help me solve it, but it's not interactive and it will not change the problem that you were given. Like, kind of look at this graph here. I'm going to close it, and it didn't change the graph that you had. But those 2 tools are always there in the homework. They're not in quizzes, they're not in tests, but they're in the homework. That's why I said when you're doing your homework, you're also doing some studying, you're also taking some notes so that you can do well when you come to a progress quiz in the unit test. Now, Get More Help. This is where you can send me a question on Ask My Instructor, and it opens a little dialog box. The reason why I don't encourage students to send this is because it comes to my email, and It may be a day before I get to that question. I'm going to be real honest. I give priority when I see I have an email in my Canvas inbox. When I have my Canvas inbox, I give priority to that. But to go through my Pioneer email, sometimes it takes me a whole day just to go through all the discussion posts and all the different things. But one thing that this is really good for, if you have done a problem and you really cannot figure out why is marking your question wrong, when you send it to me with Ask My Instructor, it sends me a link with the exact same question that you had. Because if you know somebody in the class and you've ever compared your questions, your in your homework, the problems may be in the same order, but the questions are not exactly the same. They change slightly for each student. So then you have the Ask My Instructor, but it's not an instant help. Now, if there's a video from my lab, if there's a video from my lab, it will be right here. And I wouldn't go blindly looking for videos in my lab because they may not pertain to exactly this question. But if there's a video associated with this question, it will be right here. Also, it will take you to where the textbook opens, section 1.4. There's a tab in Pearson for the textbook, but it's kind of tedious looking for that particular section. So again, you might as well rely on this link because it will open the textbook right where section 1.4 is. It's actually starting. And you can scroll or actually go to the next question. This means that there is actually a video associated with this concept. And there are several videos associated with that concept. So if you're a book person, I know this doesn't take the place of a paper type of book, but it works just like a book. So these are all the tools that you have for your homework. And then I'm gonna write something here, and I'm not even following what the problem is. I'm just gonna write an answer. I'm gonna check my answer, and it lets me do this, I think 3 times before it changes the problem. Let me try this. So then after 3 tries, it gives up and it actually um, wants you to do you could do 2 things. You will answer the next question, and here it will say, go to the next question or do a similar problem. This is how you actually improve your grade by doing a similar problem right here. Okay? And then it will mark something correct if it's correct, and it will mark it with a red if it's incorrect. So you can always come back to something you have done and redo it. If you get it wrong, you have unlimited tries, but you have only 3 tries per question before it changes this slightly. But you can attempt it by doing a similar problem again. Okay, so let me go back to Canvas and let me go back to the modules. So those are the tools that you have in the homework. Now I'm going to show you a part of Canvas or an assignments in Canvas that you also need to pay attention to, and that is your discussions. So back in the start here, in step 5, you have everything you need to know about the discussions. I have a schedule for the discussions. This is really important because your participation is time sensitive. So you have two type of discussions, and I'm not including the introductions discussion because that's one of a kind, but you have two types of discussions. You have the TI-84 toolboxes, and basically what this creates is it creates a library of videos using the TI-84 calculator, but you only post the video if you are in group A. So let me come back here to Unit 1, and let me come to the TI-84 toolbox for Unit 1. So you will have to open the toolbox to see what group you're in. So the students that are in group A, they will post the video, and there are instructions here next to it. This after those have been approved by me, and some of you have been getting a little bit ahead of me, um, but the videos have to be approved by me because they have to pertain to Unit 1 topics, and they have to be using the TI-84. There are instructions for you if you're in Group A. Then, once those students have posted those videos, then Group B has a task. But Group C doesn't do anything unless they find a post from Group B to respond to. And in the next unit, you'll be in a different group. So please don't come blindly here to do something without reading what your instructions are, depending on what group you're in. Now, let me go back to the schedule. So Group A has to post their video, I said by 5 p.m. today. If you haven't, I won't penalize you because I'm still checking after 5 p.m., but you don't want to take a chance. Now you know and that Group A has a deadline first. Then between today and September 3rd, that's when Group B and C will do their parts. But it's important that you realize that just because somebody posts a video, I have had students that post videos and they were not even in Group A, so they have to delete it. Sometimes I have videos that they don't pertain to the calculator. So I ask the students to take them down. That's why I have to accept the videos before you post. And I try to be as fast as possible. I was really busy yesterday evening and today, but I also have other classes and other Zoom meetings. So I've been trying to do it as fast as I can, approving the videos. So groups B and C, you have time to do your part. In Group A, if you miss the deadline, probably sometime this evening, I will check the rest and I won't penalize you. But if you are in Group A and you miss the deadline tomorrow, then you still get half credit for your post. Okay? So, and then that's another reason why I want you to come to the modules because otherwise you might miss some of these instructions. You might miss some of these discussions here. I see the TI-84 toolbox, and I put on the heading when Group A has to post, just to remind you. Now there's another kind, and that is the math Q&A discussion. Those are actually open kind of longer than the TI-84 toolboxes. The TI-84 toolboxes there's one per unit. And the math Q&A discussion, sometimes they overlap in the units, and you're gonna post questions here that are math questions. So I have in this calendar, I have also your calendar for the discussions, for the math Q&A discussions. You have to post, everybody has to post their question in the first 72 hours. So this is when it opens, this is when it closes. Sorry, this is when you have to post your first question. It's 72 working hours, like school hours. Doesn't count, the weekends don't count against you. Holidays don't count against you. So that's what the green is. Then the second week starts here. So after the second week starts, you have to post another picture, another question. You have to post a total of 2 questions, but if you have 5 questions, post them all. Okay? Again, we're trying to create a community where we help each other. I answer questions. Sometimes your classmates do. Sometimes students feel kind of apprehensive about helping others because they're struggling with that material. But you don't have to work a problem completely out, the whole thing, to get your credit. So let me go to math Q&A discussion 2. So those same dates that you saw on on the calendar for the discussions, I remind you here when it opens in the heading, it tells you when your first question or post has to be posted. And that was, I do go by this because this has been open already for a while. So, but you only get 1 point off out of the 8 points if you didn't post by 5 p.m. today. So don't wait any longer so that you can get your other point for the post. And you have gives you the 72 hours. So it says 7 a.m., but go by what the heading says. So the 72 hours will be by 5 p.m. today. Then it tells you when the second week starts and when the ending week, when it ends. Now, if you have to type an equation, if you're not posting a picture, but you have to type an equation, this is a video that shows you how to use the math equation editor. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. This right here looks complicated, but if you're using a math symbol that it's not on your keyboard, this will help you out, and that's what the video is for. You have to hit reply at the very top to post your question. Okay, so that's the first 2 points. A question in the first 72 hours or the first week. Then you have to post a response to a classmate's question, and it has to be mathematical in nature. It cannot be Mystery Loves Company. Oh, yes, I'm having trouble with the same type of question. It has to be mathematical in nature. It could be as simple as saying, John, you have to add 5 to both sides of the equation to get started. And if it's mathematical information and correct, there's nothing, you will get your points there. And then if it's not mathematical in nature, you may get only 1 point. And if you don't ever respond to anybody's, then you get 0. Okay, so now, one thing that I wanted to show you is, I haven't answered this last questions here. If you are responding to Corey's question, don't hit reply here, but hit reply under Corey's question, because otherwise it gets lost and it looks like a new post and I have no idea, or nobody has any idea what you're responding to. Okay, so that's really important. New question, new post. You use the reply that is at the very top. right here, that green reply. If you are replying to something that, to a question that your classmates have, then hit the reply that you have right here. And sometimes, let me go to the very bottom. Sometimes there are a lot of replies to a certain question. So you can look at that if if you have a question similar to that and you recognize that, you can come and see what was said right here, and that might help you out. Okay, now let me go to the very top because I'm showing you the rubric so you know how you're graded. So 2 points for responding to a classmate questions. You can do that in the first week. You can do that uh, in the middle of the whole discussion or towards the end. It's not time sensitive. Now, the next 2 points are going to be the easiest points that you're going to earn. Because if you post a question and you expect somebody to help you out and respond, you want to come back and you want to look at what it is that they have responded. So if you come and look at, you posted a question and then you come and look at the responses and you just say, thank you, Mary, so much for helping me with that, you'll get your 2 points. That means you check what others responded, what others commented on as far as your question. And the last 2 points is for posting a second question during the second, a second question during the second week and between these dates right here. So you have the dates right there at the top of every discussion, and you have the rubric to remind you. Something else that I mentioned in the module in that start here. Step 5 is where I had the schedule for the discussions. And I said there's a lot of other information there. I even have a video for that. You have the schedule, you have the rubrics, but I also have the rubrics in the discussions. And this link right here, how to use the snipping tool in Windows to post a picture. There's a lot of graphical problems or visual problems here in this course. So if you wanted to post a picture of a question, the snipping tool is the tool that we use in Windows. But every operating system has a way to take a screenshot. And then that's how your classmates actually posted pictures like this with the snipping tool or whatever other tool you have. And that will count as your post that you have for that. So those are some of the main things that I wanted to tell you in this course, because a lot of times we overlook the discussions and because we tend not to come here and look at that calendar that I mentioned earlier. And when you come to the modules, you have all the due dates. Sometimes they may seem out of sequence, like for example, that introductions discussion doesn't close until the 27th, but it opened very early on. That's why I have it at the top. After that, they kind of they go in order, and maybe this one might be a little bit out of order, that homework 1.4, because the math Q&A, your first post is here. Your first post is here for that. And then you have the homework. A lot of times, students like the calendar. And I like the Canvas calendar um, because you can actually select different courses. Like, for example, right now, I'm not teaching all of those courses that you see here, but you may see only the ones that are active for that semester. So if I click on the functions class, it kind of populates what is due and you see it 1 month at a time. And you can do it by weeks, you can do it by month, if you like. What I don't like about it is that it only shows you when something is closing, not when it opens. So as a general rule, all the MyLab assignments, the diagnostic quizzes, the homework, the progress quizzes, the tests, they open the Thursday before. So for example, if you're looking at the week of September 14th, all of those assignments will probably open around 7 a.m. on Thursday, September 10th. I have a few exceptions, like the the midterm, it's only open for 3 days or so, so it may not be exactly like that. So this is one way to keep track of it, but for the, at least for my math lab, the assignments will open on Thursdays before. Now, the discussions, it's better if you're looking at the calendar that I showed you before that was in that step. Either you're looking at that right here, or if you're looking at the modules and step 5, maybe take a picture of that calendar or print it or save it somewhere, like download it and save it. And that way you'll keep track of it. The other thing that I wanted to mention is everything in this course, except for the midterm and the final, are open notes and open book. Okay. And I know that it seems kind of rough, no notes, no books for the midterm and the final, but it's only 30%. Everything else that you do is with open notes and open book. So you really want to try to do your best on everything before the midterm and before the final. And sometimes students don't read the simple syllabus, and I get it. So I have summarized here. I call it my late work policy, but really, in general, I don't have a late penalty. I don't allow late work. Now, if you email me pretty soon after you miss something within reason, I will open it up. But at the end of the semester, you get to drop the 3 lowest homework assignments, and you have unlimited tries on your homework by the due date by doing a similar problem instead of moving on to the next question. The diagnostic quizzes will be turned into hundreds, maybe not automatically. I do that manually, and it kind of on a weekly basis. Now, progress quizzes are not automatically turned into hundreds. They're usually based on right and wrong answers, and but you have 3 tries for them. 3 tries for the progress quizzes. There's a progress quiz in the middle, at least one progress quiz in the middle of every unit, and you have 3 tries. So of course, if you wait at 11 p.m. at night when they're due, you're not going to be able to do all 3 tries, but you have 3 tries. Now, the unit test and the proctor midterm and the proctor final, you only have 1 try. But you have the opportunity to get extra credit and partial credit. There's a practice test for each of those tests, and you get extra credit based on the score that you get on the practice test. And the practice test has unlimited tries. In addition, you will receive partial credit when applicable if you turn in the scratch paper with problems number for each of the unit tests and for the midterm and the final. And the way that works is I review all 4 unit tests and the midterm and the final. I don't touch anything you answer correctly. This scratch paper can only raise your grade. But I come across and I see that you missed question 5. So the first thing is I click on it and I review it, and maybe it was a rounding error, so I can give you a partial credit. Maybe the answer looks completely different, so that's when I look at your scratch paper and I see if you show me any steps for problem 5. And if there were steps, and you were on the right track, I can give you partial credit. Where my lab or Pearson does not give you partial credit. It only gives you partial credit if there are several answers or several steps. But it doesn't give you, if an answer is wrong, it will mark it completely wrong. So you have this different like kind of breaks. You're not it's not a late penalty, but you get to drop the three lowest homework grades. You get to drop the two lowest quizzes of any kind at the end of the semester. You have practice tests for extra credit for unit test and proctor exams, and the scratch paper for partial credit for those exams. So take advantage of that, and do well on everything else that you have here, so that the midterm and the final, we'll have a review, there's a practice test, but it is kind of difficult because you don't have all your notes in front of you like you have with the rest of the assignments. But it gives you a cushion to actually do well and do everything that I have in here. So, any questions about anything that I've talked about?
Can we use our calculator on our midterm and
Oh,
finals?
you have to use your TI-84
Okay, I was
calculator.
just
Yes,
asking.
definitely. But thank you for asking that, because I didn't mention that. But you need it because there are I would say 85% of what you do in this course could be done with the calculator. And then about maybe 50% can only be done with the calculator. Like starting with section 2.1, which is
Mhm.
regression, that can only be done on the calculator.
And how does proctor exams work? Like, how do we take
Okay,
our
so
finals and stuff like that?
yeah, let me go back so you see where
Hmm.
um where you can find some of the information. So basically, proctor means that somebody has to watch you and supervise you while you take the midterm and the final. So, first of all, in step 7, I give you kind of a rundown of the different options. If you're local or somewhat near, you can come to the WSC Testing Center free of charge. They do ask you for a picture ID, and they're only open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. But it's free of charge. So if you can manage coming to campus, that's great. If you are too far, or it might not even be that far. Say you live in Lawton, but you can take a 2-hour break to go take the exam, but not to drive to Altos. So these are the other two options. You could make an appointment with ProctorU, and here are the instructions. But ProctorU costs you money and it requires an appointment. So if the only time you can take the test is, and I'm just making this up, is between 4 and 6 p.m., you want to make your appointment as soon as possible for the midterm and the final so that you can get 4 to 6 p.m. on one of the days that the exam is open. The other option is a third-party proctor. For example, if you're living Lawton, Cameron,
Hmm.
proctor exams for other institutions, they may have a fee, but you can do it actually locally, and it may be even less. Sometimes public libraries, technology centers. It cannot be your next door neighbor that is a retired teacher. It has to be somebody in an official capacity. So for that, for a third party proctor, you have to fill out this proctor agreement that you have right here. So these are the instructions for proctoring.
Where is the testing center?
So the testing center is actually in the library in our
Oh,
campus.
okay, gotcha. Hmm.
Yeah, it's inside the library there.
Okay.
Um, and then later on, when we get close to the midterm, and then I will show you like all the instructions and details for the midterm, the instructions and details for the final exam. Those are actually also in the modules,
Okay.
but we don't need to necessarily touch on that right now. But proctoring is very important. I'm glad that you're asking me about that. But between Unit 2 and Unit 3, then you have a module that says Proctor Midterm. There are instructions just for the midterm, and there are some other files that we'll use when we review during Zoom meeting 3 that are here.
So with that test, um, is the library up there usually pretty booked or I
They
live
don't allow appointments, but you are given a period of about 3 days. So let me go back. And I tried to put a weekend in there whenever possible in case you're using ProctorU. But sometimes they may be quite booked. So let me see on the midterm. It opens on a Thursday and it closes the following Monday. So you would have Thursday, Friday, and Monday to take your test, but you really don't want to go at, you're allowed 2 hours and they close at 4:30. You don't want to always go exactly at 2:30 because if they're busy, um, you may have to wait a little bit. I have tried to set my exams at least the midterm, so that it doesn't coincide with when the first 8-week classes are ending. So you may not find as much traffic as you think during these dates. Because I think that the second 8-week classes they start on the 9th, so the final exam for the first 8 weeks is around the 8th.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Be quiet, please. I did have one question. I'm so sorry. So I have a TI-89, and I feel like I know the answer, but I did chat GPT it, and they said it would work. But would it?
Well, it's more advanced than what we are allowed.
It felt like it.
Yeah. Where do you live, Kylie?
I live in Lawton.
If it was worthwhile making a trip, you can actually check out TI-84s out of the testing center or which is the bookstore for free. The only way your charge is if you don't return it or you don't return it in working condition.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions?
I missed when you said on Wednesday we can come in person for something.
Oh, so
Only
this
first.
Wednesday at 1:30 in the Wins Lab, we are doing a TI-84 calculator workshop, and I'm actually one of the instructors that will be there doing that. So if you wanted to come in person and you wanted to come to that, you don't have to attend the TI-84 Zoom meeting that we have next week. So it is Wednesday, August the 26th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. in the Wins Lab.
I'm probably going to be there.
And the nice thing is that we're in person. We're 3 teachers. We can walk around and help you if you can, that will be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna look at participants and I'm gonna take attendance by taking a picture here. So you make sure your cameras are on. Don't be shy. I know nobody likes to be on camera, even though you are all very nice. But I know nobody likes being on camera. Yeah, I need to scroll, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, very good. So I've taken attendance. If you don't have any other questions, that's all I had planned for you today. We'll see each other next Monday for the TI-84 calculator. So if you don't have your TI-84, make sure you have it by next Monday. And not only that, but 2.1 is, you start working on 2.1 shortly after that, and you absolutely need your TI-84 for that. Okay? Okay, have a good evening. Thank you.